The Maple Leafs got trounced 6-1 in Game 7. Jerseys hit the ice. Boos rained down on the club. Is significant change finally ahead? We discuss that and break down the disappointing Game 7 loss to the Panthers on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Dave, they done did it. They done did it. They have broken me. I'm not even mad. I'm disappointed, Dave. I'm disappointed that the Maple Leafs once again kind of gave the fan base a little bit of hope with that Game 6 performance, only to replicate that dumpster fire in Game 5 in a must-win, do-or-die series clinching Game 7 and get ran out of the rink. They lose 6-1 to the Florida Panthers, and the season is over. I'm just disappointed in that effort, Dave. Strongly disappointed.
Oh, there's so many words you can use to describe your feelings after that game. Disappointed is probably the best word to use, but it's also predictable, right?
It became laughable at one point, to be honest. Like, when Luosterainen, quick strike after the Domi goal and made it 4-1, it was like, okay, all right, classic. Yep, this one's done. This is over. Fantastic.
Yeah, just goes to show that the mentality that was needed on a game like this. What really I was talking to, I talked to a lot of people after this game.
Oh, dude, my group chats, like a couple of my like big hockey group chats are just on fire right now.
Mine is still going as a recording this.
Oh yeah, same. There's like one Leafs truther in the chat too, and it's just everyone just like trying to say, oh, I think the Leafs are getting a bad rep. They're probably going to get flamed over this loss, but they really shouldn't. They're a good team. They made it to Game 7 against the defending Cup champ. Okay, can I say something? All right, so here's the thing, all right, because I know there are a lot of people that may be on the same side. It's like, it is a good team. Did they take the Panthers to 7? Yeah, they did, against a really quality Panthers team. But it's not the fact that the Maple Leafs lost. It's not the fact they lost in Game 7. It's how they lost, right? It's not the result. It's the process. And it's the fact that they just were simply not prepared to play this game. And that's what's so disappointing. How they they knew the formula. The formula that they played with in Game 6 is what they needed to do. And what happened in Game 6 was they came out firing. They were all over Florida, controlled the pace, controlled the tempo, won puck battles, and they were the aggressors, and they were on their toes the entire opening first period when they were in Florida. The first 10 minutes of this hockey game was some of the worst Leaf hockey that I have seen all season long. The shot attempts at one point were 25-0, Dave. 25-0. It took the Maple Leafs 12 minutes to get their first shot on goal. It is a do or die. Game 7 in your own building. You worked all season long to get home ice advantage, and that's the performance you're leaving Leafs Nation with? Not just Game 5, but Game 5 and 6 together. Two of the arguably worst games that they have played on home ice all season. And it's with your backs up against the wall in those crucial games, especially a Game 7. It's just absolutely disgusting. And I don't fault anyone in Leafs Nation for being appalled by anyone who's out there booing. The jerseys during play, that's one thing. But you throw your jerseys, you give them the boos. I'll be honest, man, they deserved it tonight. They
absolutely
definitely deserved it.
I think there's a couple things there. The start. Look, I was watching the game with a group of people. Went to it. We decided let's go out, have a good time, go to a Well, try to have a good time. And it was becoming very clear, very evident. Yep, there was obvious what should have looked like obvious penalty calls weren't happening.
Yeah.
And it felt like a shift was happening with the team where it was like, okay, at some point we got to step it up and push back. It eventually happened in that first period. But then the Panthers also realized one thing. We can play to our game. Nothing's going to get called. And the Leafs are probably not going to be able to respond to it. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Right? The aggressiveness that the Panthers played with. It was sick to my stomach seeing this team again and again and again
Turn
the puck out of their own. I have seen, and I've watched my fair share of what you call beer league hockey. That looked like a team that brought in a bunch of ringers that played major junior A to go up against a bunch of guys who just do this once a week to get some exercise and to relive some of the, an ability to play hockey. How badly they looked outmatched. And this might sound like an unpopular opinion to some people, and some people, they might love what I'm going to say next. This needed to happen. This needed to happen because if this Leafs team thought that what they were going to do in this game was going to be some recipe for success or was going to fly in the next 2 rounds where it only gets harder, this needed to happen to make them realize, no, not going to happen. You cannot try to win games when your back's against the wall. And we talked about this, instead of letting the game come to you, you put yourself forward. And that's what happened tonight. There was too much of, we're going to try to not overplay things, not overdo things. But the Panthers are like, we're just going to be on top of you every second, and you got to find a way to respond. And I thought, look, they were finally taking advantage of the aggressiveness. They're taking advantage of Florida making some, crucial mistakes.
Yeah. They end up with like 3 breakaways in the final 10 minutes there. Like they had their opportunities, couple of chances. Nylander kind of had a little chance. Lorentz, Scott Lawton, like they had some opportunities, just wasn't able to finish, right? Bobrovsky kind of, withstood that pushback from Toronto. But after that was done, nothing. They took that penalty late in the first period. That kind of negated all of the momentum that they had. Bonehead. I mean, you hate taking those bench penalties, too many men penalties. We for years we've been talking about the Maple Leafs getting caught with those, and that killed all the momentum that they had been pushing for in that first period. And then they came out in the second period completely flat and just got their asses handed to them. They couldn't even touch the puck in the first 10 minutes of the first period, and then the entire second period. It felt like they maybe had the puck in the offensive end for all of 48 seconds tops. Like it was embarrassing how badly they got outplayed and they got outmanned and outbattled. They didn't win a single 50-50 battle all night. That anytime they had a Florida Panther breathing down their neck, they were quick to just push the puck along. Didn't get a good firm grip of the puck to ring it around the boards, or at least, a firm pass to try and get it out of the building, a breakout pass. No, there was a lot of one-handed little pushes, a lot of one-touch passes. Like, this is not what you can do in the playoffs. This is not what you can do in Game 7, especially when you got a team who's as aggressive on the forecheck as the Florida Panthers, and they got beat and they got shown up for it. Like, when you play like that against a team like Florida, they're going to make you pay. And they made them pay again and again and again and again. 6 goals later, Dave, 6 goals later on home ice. And it was just, a brutal effort from really right from the opening puck drop right to the final moments where, Leafs Nation, who was left in that building, was booing that team off the ice to finish up the 2024-25 campaign, in which, sure, they won more games in the cap era than any other Maple Leafs team. But does it matter when you put forward an effort like that in a must-win game?
No.
When the 9 years before that, what the history is like. It's not as though this was, the Ottawa Senators who are just happy to be there, taking it to a Game 7, and then, okay, we weren't prepared. We weren't ready for it. No, this team has played 6 Game 7s now. 6 times this core has played in a Game 7. They're now 0-6 in those 7s. They talk every season about learning lessons. How did they not keep learning these lessons and applying those learned lessons? And how do you show up in a game and get outshot 25-0 to start the game in terms of shot attempts? 25-0 to start. That should never, ever happen for a team that is this far along, that has Stanley Cup aspirations, that's coming off a game in which they executed perfectly. It was an absolute embarrassment, and it really, outside of that little push of about 7-8 minutes after the opening 10, it was all Florida the rest of the way.
Yeah, and there was so many things that you can look at to say this didn't go right, that didn't go right, this didn't go right. Like there was
chances too, though. Like that Jones second goal probably should have counted. There had a puck go, a couple of pucks off the post that I thought were going to go in. Like it could have been like 7-8-1.
Oh, it could have been 10. Like realistically, like there were so many just ways that what the Panthers did, and Craig Berube said it. Execution wasn't there. Mindset, or no, sorry, it wasn't Craig Berube. It was Kevin Bieksa. I'll give him kudos because he said it. It's effort and execution. The Panthers, if you want to label their identity, it's they give the effort and they execute when it matters.
Yeah.
Pretty simple.
That's what it comes down to in the playoffs, right? Like, and Craig Berube did touch on that, where he said simply, we didn't execute. You know, he says it's not a skill problem, right? It's an execution problem with this group, right? That's what he said. It's not that they don't know how to do it. It's just that they aren't doing it, because they showed in Game 6 they know how to execute the game, and when it's done to perfection, when they play up to potential, they're a really good hockey team. They look like a Stanley Cup contender. They beat the defending Florida champions in their home building, stayed alive with a 2-0 win. All they had to do was play the exact same way. You know the script. You know how to play. Do it again. Game 7. They did the complete opposite. The complete opposite. They got ran out their rink, and the last 2 games on home ice, they got outscored 12-2. 12-2 on home ice. That's brutal, man. That's a terrible way to finish off the season. And just not a good game overall for the Maple Leafs. It was an interesting season. It was a roller coaster of a season, I think we could say. Before we really start to kind of, dissect the year as a whole, let's take a quick break. We'll regroup, come back, get to the good, the bad, the ugly, and then we could start to kind of look forward, because now the big questions arise, right? Is it finally time the Leafs make tangible on-ice changes? We'll discuss that and more next here on the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. It's just super convenient to have everything in one app. You can put all your different accounts, making sure that you don't have to go through all these different apps to track everything that you are spending or what income is coming in. And if you are managing money with your partner, it's smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you on the heels of the 6-1 defeat to the Florida Panthers. The Maple Leafs eliminated from the playoffs. The season is over, and it was in one of the most disappointing fashions that we've seen from this Maple Leafs team. I mean, obviously, when we talk about our lifetime, it wasn't nearly as much as a debacle as 2013. That'll be very difficult to beat. But I would say this is probably number 2 in terms of disappointing Game 7 efforts and Game 7 defeats. There's been times where it's fallen off a cliff like 2013, but this is just one that was just strictly disappointing just because of the fact that they quite literally did not show up to play this game.
2013 was shocking just because you couldn't believe that a team would blow a 4-1 lead with 10 minutes left in the third period.
Yeah,
This one was
those tweets were out there. I tweeted out there too.
I saw them.
Oh yeah, I'm like, yeah, it's 4-1, third period, 10 minutes left. You're saying there's a chance.
Yeah, but what this game showed is that there were players on this team that didn't have the fight anymore.
Yeah,
they just simply couldn't bring what was needed in this game. And yeah, it's disappointing. It's frustrating.
My question is how is that possible though at this point where the Leafs are at, the amount of pressure that's on them to perform, and they continually, time and time again, fail to rise to the occasion. You can't tell me that they didn't have it in them. Like,
No.
what do you mean you don't have it? How are you supposed to win a Stanley Cup championship if you can't make it through 2 rounds without having energy? Like, I know, I can't fathom thinking that was the case.
No, I personally don't think it was energy, effort, maybe.
Yeah,
it was and Craig Rubin kind of said it. It was a mindset. I just think it was a team that was playing timid. It was a team that had another team breathing down their necks and just couldn't find the response that was needed. And you see it when a simple breakdown defensively, and they don't know what to do. They didn't know what to do. And credit Florida because they forced that. They forced the Leafs to be uncomfortable all series long, especially starting game. Well, I would say game 3, right?
Yeah, 3, 4,
4, right? When they decided, okay, the Leafs had their fun for the first 2 games. Now it's our turn. The Leafs. How many games did we see this team be unable to clear the puck? Or like the Panthers knew exactly what the Leafs were trying to do. Try to clear the zone. So what were they doing? Make sure they didn't clear the zone. The Leafs were trying now to do those stretch passes so they can try to negate the forecheck. What were they doing?
Picking them off at center ice.
Picking them off at center ice, or that neutral, that blue line was a fortress.
Yeah.
So maybe it was a fact that maybe things needed to change. Maybe, but it was also, guys needed to reset their mindset, and it didn't happen. And they felt like if it was going to be, it was too much work for them to have to do that, and they paid for it at the end.
So the Floridas were credited with 7 takeaways, and the Leafs apparently only 12 giveaways. That seems a little low to me. Maybe 12 giveaways in the first period is more so what it felt like. But yeah, like that ultimately was the problem. The Leafs just couldn't get the puck out of their zone. The offensive zone time was heavily favored by the Florida Panthers, and this was something we talked about being an issue all playoffs long. Not even, when you look at just this last game, but even when they were up 2-0, like we were on the podcast saying, they're kind of lucky to be up 2-0 because the Panthers have had the puck in the Leafs end a whole lot, and they've been a little lucky. Stolarz played well in the power play, right? Like there were, the Leafs were kind of lucky to be up 2-0. And I remember us getting roasted in the comment section saying we didn't know what we were talking about. The Leafs are up 2-0. They're playing well, yada. And next thing you know, the goals started to go the other way. The Florida Panthers started to get the bounces going their way. And in Game 7, when, the chips were down and the Maple Leafs need to give you an effort, again, the same problem persisted. They could not get the puck out of their own end, and they could not handle the aggressive forecheck of the Florida Panthers. And that ultimately is what plagued them. We talked about going into the series, how that was going to be, remember we did reasons to be optimistic and reasons to be pessimistic that the Leafs could win. One of the reasons for pessimism was they struggled at times with the Ottawa forecheck. And Florida, they cranked that up to a whole other league than the Ottawa Senators. And that was something that really plagued them throughout the entire postseason. And most glaringly tonight was a massive problem. Just simply couldn't get the puck out of their zone pretty well the entire night, the entire second period, the whole first half of the first. Just a brutal showing overall for Toronto in that regard. All right, let's get to the good, the bad, the ugly here, Dave. Any good? That fourth line, thought the fourth line played well as per usual. But when the fourth line is your lone, bright, shining star, it's kind of a problem. Kind of a problem, Dave, especially in a series clinching Game 7 scenario.
Yeah, especially when in the third period is the fourth line starting the period. Your coach is sending a message.
Yeah.
Your coach is sending a message.
Down 3-0, heading into the third period, and your coach says, "Let's get the fourth line out there, get some juices flowing." Yeah.
And look, I also say this because Max Domi has taken a lot of flack for his season. And look, frankly, expected more from, didn't really deliver in certain areas.
Yeah.
But in this game, I felt like he was one of the few players that played with gumption. He decided, I'm going to lay it all on the line in this game. I can't believe I just said that. Oh, I'm so glad I don't have to listen to that song as much anymore. I just think with Max Domi, the one thing you can never criticize with him is he always puts everything out there when it really matters. And that's, again, yes, maybe the execution wasn't there. Maybe he has flaws defensively. I get it. But there's times in this playoffs, who knows where they would have been without Max Domi, right? There was the OT winner that he scored.
Yep.
This game here, there would have been no reason to cheer other than for that Domi goal, right?
Literally, yeah.
And
it wasn't even like a big hit to even get the crowd pumping. Like Jake McCabe didn't go out there and lay a big hit. Like Pacioretty didn't really lay a big hit. I mean, you could have had something from Austin. You could have had something from Bobby McMahon. Like anyone really could have got the party going. It just never really happened.
I felt like Max Domi was the only guy that was really putting in that push, pushback. So as I don't know, many people want him to be traded going into this offseason. Maybe look at other people that were seen as more. He was not a passenger in this game. I'll say.
No, he was not. He wasn't one of the passengers that Austin Matthews was talking about. We'll get to that in just a moment. But really quickly on the fourth line, they ended up with the second most minutes at 5-on-5 among any forward trio. So obviously the top line, right, got 9 minutes and 22 seconds. Knies, Matthews, and Marner. Lorentz, Lawton, and Yarncroc played 9 minutes together at 5-on-5, which was the second most of any trio in the game, and they had a 92% expected goals in those 9 minutes of ice time. So you love to see it. 5 scoring chances they're able to muster up, but again, when you're relying on your fourth line to be the difference maker, you're just not going to win a lot of hockey games. You really are not, and that's where the Maple Leafs kind of fell short. And it's the same narrative every year. The team can't score in the postseason, right? They finally showed up the blue line. They've got good goaltending. So that wasn't their Achilles heel this year. It was okay. Now let's go out and score some goals. And they still couldn't get it done. The last 4 games of this series, they averaged 1.5 goals per game. Like they scored twice. No, shutout, 1, 2, 1. In the last 4 games. 6 goals last 4 games. That's it. None coming from Nylander or Tavares or Mitch Marner. You got 1 from Austin Matthews. So like the core 4 did not deliver whatsoever in the back half of this game. And that's where, we get to the bad. I mean, that I don't know if it's bad or ugly or what it is, but like I thought that the core 4 again just didn't. They were the passengers. They were the passengers.
That's what he was talking about. Passengers. That's why it's an ugly for
Do you have
me.
the quote? Do you have the exact quote? Can you pull it up really quickly? Like Austin Matthews post game was obviously asked about, his thoughts on the team's performance tonight, and essentially he was talking about how he felt like there were some passengers tonight, and not everyone was on the same page, and they didn't play very connected. Which all of which is true. I think that is unequivocally true when you look at the performance. The problem is, like he said, there were too many passengers. He was the passenger tonight. Marner was a passenger tonight. Nylander was a passenger tonight. Like the big boys were the passengers. So I wouldn't go out there and say there were too many passengers. It was I wasn't good enough. That's what I want to hear. You're the captain. And there wasn't enough. Like I don't know. It's strange because you want to hear we and the team and not make it about you. But at the same time, when you are the guy, like you need to come out and you need to take onus and take blame for your team's performance when you played that poorly. What was the exact quote there, Dave?
The first 10 minutes, they came out strong. The next 10 minutes, I thought we controlled play. Then I thought we had too many passengers throughout the rest of the game and just weren't on the same page, to which Mitch Marner then responded, that's the right wording, I would say as well. Can't have passengers in the game 7. We all got to hold ourselves to a higher accountability.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. But like
so spot on. Mitch Marner, and it's going to be memed. It's going to be thrown out there. It's been thrown out there a bunch on social media when he's telling everybody to wake the you-know-what up. And it's like, are you talking to the guys on the bench or are you talking to yourself, Mitch? Because Mitch Marner was probably, if you're talking about passengers, probably number one. Actually, I think him and this is why it was an ugly. Him and Nylander were the biggest passengers. Nylander could not care. I think he was the most mentally checked out player other than Mitch Marner in this game.
Yeah, which is weird because Willie's been the big player performer. Like of the four, he's been the guy who there's been least to worry about in these moments. And last 3 games, he's been nowhere to be seen, which is insane. Now, especially since he's paid. He's paid to perform, and that's why the scrutiny now kind of ratchets up on a guy like that. But Nylander, to your point, passenger, what's he? 31% expected goals tonight. John Tavares, 24% expected goals. So he lost 75% of his minutes this tonight. 75% of the minutes. He was a -3 on the ice for 3 goals tonight. He was outshot 16-3 went out on the ice. John Tavares, 16-3 tonight for him. So it might be his last game as a Toronto Maple Leaf. And unfortunately, it was just such an ugly performance in what could be the final time he wears that Maple Leaf jersey. But he was my ugly tonight. I think John had a particularly he had a brutal game, just flat out. There's no other way to put it. Brutal game, bad one for him.
I just put it to the top 6.
Yeah,
right. The top 6. I mean, can we lump 9?
Yeah, like top 9. Like they're just the top 9. Like I don't know, man. Like Joseph Woll didn't have a good game either. Like especially like I get it, the game was over, but like that Reinhart goal, that's not a good goal to give up. Like you can't really give that up at that point. Like
I'm at a point where why even bring up Woll's performance when like he gives up, even if he gave up 2 or 3, were we actually really going to expect the Leafs to score more than 1 goal?
No, this game's not on Woll at all.
I know that's not what you're saying. I had people actually message me, like some brutal goals he gave up. I'm like, brutal goals. Like he faced a firing.
One. He scored. He could have only given up 2 goals tonight, and it would have been enough. Toronto only scored 1 goal tonight, and it came in the third period. Like, so it doesn't even matter. He would have had to put on a 1 spot or a shut. He would have had to put out a shutout. Literally, he would have had to pitch a shutout to win tonight's game because Toronto only mustered up 1 goal. So it was shutout or bust. Like that you can't do that to your goaltender. He was under siege the entire night too. Like it was like brutal.
Like for me, another bad was the especially that top pairing. We gave them their flowers.
Yeah.
And tonight they just
McCabe was brutal.
McCabe did not want anything to do with the puck on his stick, and that was inexcusable. And there was one play that Tanev had made on the Domi goal where it's like, or was it Tanev? Sorry, no, he set up a breakaway because McMahon was the one that set up the Domi goal. But there's one play that Tanev had made to spring. I think it may have been Lawton for a breakaway. One of those plays. And it's like, that's what you are supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't do that. And to me, like the first or second goal of the game, McCabe has a chance. He tries to shoot it, absolutely fails at it. And the Panthers go the other way, and it's in the back of your net. So it just too many lapses, too many plays that weren't made with conviction. And, a lot of guys that, wasn't passengers. It was just execution, effort, as we've been talking about the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, keep right down to the first goal, right? And go down. You could see there's a mistake made by someone on every goal, right? Like Riley, tries to come up and make that pinch along the wall. He gets, the Panthers are able to make the play, so he's out of the play, and all of a sudden it's basically a 2-on-1 with Seth Jones and Reinhart, right? Carlo plays the pass wrong, because Marner was coming back. Like he had Reinhart. Carlo should have pressured the puck there at that point.
Make Seth Jones make it harder for him to get that puck. Like Seth Jones had all 9 days to pick exactly where that shot needed to go.
Yeah.
Make it tough.
I get like the usual play is to give the shooter to the goalie, right? Yeah. But the backside was taken care of because Marner was back checking. Like Marner was there-ish. Like he was close enough.
By the time it took Seth Jones to make the pass, there's probably a good opportunity for even Carlo to get in the passing lane.
Right? Yeah.
But what he did wrong is he went
out of the way.
Completely over. He's like, here you go. I'm just going to go over here. Don't pass it because I'm here. It's like, no, take what they did so on game 6. They were right in the face of any Panthers player trying to take a shot.
Yeah.
And in this game, that didn't happen. Gap control was not there. And that play was very reminiscent of it. And I mean, it also should never have happened in the first place because Morgan Riley decides, I'm going to go and make an aggressive play for the puck, get absolutely walked, and nothing.
Yeah, he could also deserves a spot in the ugly too.
He was the worst defenseman, I think, tonight.
Yeah, not a good game from Morgan Riley. And again, going into an off season where there's a lot of change to be expected, his name's going to come up a lot. Whether or not something happens, I don't know. All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back. Let's just kind of talk about the future a little bit, but then we can dive much further into it tomorrow and the rest of the week. So we'll come back. We'll quickly talk about what's next for this group, and we'll do that on the other side. I'm Mike DiStefano and David Morassutti. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. This show is sponsored by Farm to Fork. If you're a fan of premium, locally farmed meats delivered straight to your door, I've got some exciting news. Farm to Fork makes it easy to get high-quality steaks, air-chilled chicken, wild-caught seafood, and more with no antibiotics, hormones, or GMOs. Plus, everything comes flash frozen and individually packaged for your convenience. All Farm to Fork meats are raised on Canadian farms. So when you order, you're supporting local producers. It's time to buy Canadian. Farm to Fork's meats are top-notch. I've had some amazing steaks that were tender, juicy, perfectly cooked. Their chicken is air-chilled, so it's fresher and more flavorful than you get in the store. And they're delivering all across Ontario and Western Quebec. And what's the best part? Delivery is free with a minimum order of $199. You don't even have to leave the house to get this quality. I've got a special code just for you Locked On Leafs listeners. Locked On 40 gets you $40 off your first order at Farm to Fork. Visit farmtoforkdelivery.ca to start stocking up on the best meats around. Again, that's Locked On 40 for $40 off your first order. Farm to Fork, delicious, locally farmed meats delivered straight to your door. The Locked On Leafs podcast continues, not just today or tomorrow or the next day, but all off season long. We are a full year-long podcast. So just because the Maple Leafs ended their season tonight, the Locked On Leafs podcast will continue throughout the rest of the playoffs into the off season for draft coverage, free agency coverage, and then we also will be doing shows throughout the summer as well, because there's never a dull day in Leafs Nation, and it's about to get even spicier.
Yeah.
9 years this core has been together. They've won 2 playoff rounds. It's the definition of failure, realistically. And they've gone back at it time and time and time again. This feels like the most pivotal summer, though, that this organization has in that 9-year span. And it feels like now is finally the time we see tangible on ice change. Because we've seen change at the top, right? The GM has been, changed out. The coach has been changed out. The assistants have been changed out. And the guys on the peripherals have been moved in and out. But the core has remained. It feels as though this summer, for the first time, we might actually see some tangible change here.
The reason why in the initial, when we started the show or early in the show, I said this needed to happen this way is because you cannot have anybody show up within the locker cleanup, whatever you want to call it, end of season media avails and say we were right there. Because we've heard it how many times before? We're just knocking on the door. One shot, one bounce away. In a 6-1 game, that's not one shot, one bounce away. That is, we are taking massive steps back. We have failed to live to expectations.
Yeah.
This cannot continue.
Did you hear Tavares after someone?
I heard him. Yeah.
Yeah. Someone asked him post game if he felt tonight's game proved how far they actually are away from being a Stanley Cup contender. I thought his answer was interesting. He said yes and no. So he did somewhat allude to the fact that there is something within this team that does stop them from reaching that level of being the Florida Panthers, of being a Stanley Cup contender. Whether he knows what it is or not, I guess remains to be seen, or whether they're able to capture it by next season remains to be seen. Whether he's around for this team to, be part of that change remains to be seen. But I did think it was interesting and notable that he did say, yeah, in a way it does. Like, yeah, they were, to use a phrase that you hate, they were right there. They brought it to a game 7. They competed with the defending champs, Florida Panthers. But when the chips were down and when they needed to deliver in a must-win game, they weren't able to elevate and get to that level. But the Panthers were, because they know how to do that. The Leafs simply don't.
They found a way to build that mentality, right? When people were doubting them how many years ago, when they went on that run and they beat the Leafs, right? When they went on that just unreal run to the Cup final the first time, there was this, they built this mentality. Paul Maurice was able to get them to buy in to what he was selling because it was working.
Yeah.
Then they go back to it. They were remember, they were up 3-0 in that series against Edmonton. Edmonton forced a game 7 and they dug in. They found a way to win that game because they maintained their belief, right? They knew they needed to execute. They knew they just needed to find a way to grind. Even if it was the ugliest game they played, as long as they won, that's all they cared about. And so I think where John Tavares is probably conflicted is he feels like maybe within how the players were interacting and how they were talking, maybe there wasn't quit. But I think he probably said on the ice, they were so outmatched. It's hard to not agree with maybe they're not ready for it, because there's another team on the other side there that felt they were calm, cool, and collected. There was never any panic in the Panthers tonight.
Yeah.
And to me, that's probably where John Tavares says, okay, like something isn't right here, because this is way harder for us than it is for them.
Gut feel on Tavares' future with the Maple Leafs. Pending UFA. Is he back?
If he understands that he is no longer the top 6 second line center making a decent chunk of change, like if he truly wants to stay, and we heard him say after the game, I want to be back.
Yep.
How much do you want to be back? Are you going to accept that things are going to have to change, and you're going to be, and that's a part of it.
I will say, like, he has a leg to stand on if he wants to continue and be like, yeah, I can still be like a top 6. The guy had 38 goals this year, and he did have 5 goals in the playoffs. Like, he wasn't.
One thing he has said consistently from the beginning, I want to be here.
Yeah.
There's nowhere else I want to be. And he says whatever management decides they want to do, but he's always maintained there was never any doubt of whether John Tavares was committed to being here. I think they will find a way to bring him back, but it's going to have to be way different.
Yeah.
Because their priorities are changing.
Yeah. And he's come out publicly and said, like, I've made my money. Like, he said that statement publicly, which leads you to believe that he'd be willing to work with management to find a contract that would be considered team friendly, I would think. And if that's what he's willing to do, then I think, a lot of people in that organization would love to bring Tavares back. I'm not sure about 16. I'm not sure Mitch Marner returns. We may have seen his last game as a Toronto Maple Leaf. I'm not sure he would want to return, especially after getting booed off the ice like that. Someone threw a beer at him tonight, apparently, walking down the tunnel like that. If I'm Marner, I might not want to come back either. Like, honestly, I think it might be best for both the organization and the player to just amicably go your separate ways this summer. And it's so unfortunate that the Maple Leafs get nothing, get 0 assets for one of the best players in the league. He is, let's be honest, 100-point Selke candidates. They don't grow on trees. But it feels like it's just time for these two to go in separate directions.
I just think it's enough. I think maybe
something has to change. Something has to change. And
not only something has to change, but direction. It has been 9 years of, in these crucial moments, he's not able to elevate his game to where it needs to be.
Hang on, I got a stat here for you. What did I see here? In the 6 career Game 7s for Mitch Marner, he has 0 goals and just 2 assists in 6 career Game 7s. Yeah, not great.
Brad Marchand
had more tonight.
Leafs has scored more goals in Game 7s than the entire Leafs team. That's another stat you can drop in there. I just think they view him as a core guy, a leader guy, and when you view him like that, and that's what you get out of a player like him, it just speaks to itself that it's just, again, they can keep saying he's a good player. He does this in the regular season, all that stuff. We've talked about it. But we said it how many times? There should be no reason to rush into a contract until you see what he's done in the postseason. Yep. And this postseason, you saw what we've seen. There's no change. There's nothing different. He's had the most pressure to perform. Why? Because he did that to himself.
Yeah.
He decided, I'm not going to talk contract. I love playing here.
Nick's the reported trade as well, but anyway.
Yeah, love playing here. I didn't see that passion from him in these playoffs. This did not look like a player that wanted to play in Toronto, and that should be the writing on the wall for everybody involved. Like Brad Treliving, I think you talked about the reported trade that he nixed. I think Brad Treliving was getting an inkling that, you know what, this doesn't look like a player that's committed to staying in Toronto. And God rest his soul, Johnny Gaudreau. I think there was a little bit of that in Calgary, but maybe they thought they had an inkling of a chance to bring him back. With Mitch Marner, it was being widely reported that this could lead to him going like all the way to free agency and not getting a deal. I think Brad Treliving saw that.
You know how bad Marner and Matthews were tonight? This is just fascinating to me. They were so poor tonight that Craig Berube only played Austin Matthews for 17 minutes and 27 seconds tonight. Mitch Marner played 18:43.
If this was Sheldon Keefe, both those guys would have been up to like 26, 27 minutes tonight.
Yeah.
To it.
Yeah, like they would have just absolutely rode their big boys and rode them tonight and a lot, but they weren't playing well. So Berube didn't trust them out on the ice. So he didn't. So instead, Lawton played almost 14 minutes tonight. Yarncroc played almost 15 minutes tonight. Like it's kind of wild how well distributed the minutes were in a game 7 like this with their season on the line. Like Holmberg played almost 14 minutes tonight. Like you can't tell me that it makes sense that Callie Yarncroc only played 3 less minutes than Austin Matthews tonight. It really.
And we heard Craig Berube said there's no need to change things up. No reason to split them apart because when we've had them apart, nothing really changes. Well, because what have we consistently seen these guys away from each other? Like, I think it's just they went down together as a ship, and I think for this team to officially move on, a player like Marner has to go. As upsetting as it might be for everything we've talked about, and we'll get through all that when the time potentially eventually comes.
We've got a month to dive in.
Yeah, thanks guys for that. I can't wait for the next month to be like this. But yeah, I just think if I'm handicapped or if I'm putting a percentage, 10%.
10% he's back.
10%. But that to me looked like a player at the end of the game, head down, as he come off the bench to the ice.
Well, and I don't again, maybe I'm reading into it a little too much, but when he was asked about what he thought about playing in Toronto and if he had thought of it, he did speak in past tense. I loved it here. It was great to be here. There's a lot of past tense in his verbiage when he was speaking about playing in Toronto throughout his career, asking if he had thought about it and thought about his future. Didn't sound as though he planned on sticking around. I'll say that. It seemed
didn't sound like a player that says, I'm back 100% or I'm going to do everything I can to return.
Who was it? It was who was the pitcher who won the World Series and then immediately took off the team hat and put on a Scott Boras hat or something like that. And he was like, I'm no longer part of this team because I am now a free agent and I'm going to make a bunch of money. It was like some star pitcher. I don't remember, but it almost felt like that for Marner in a way where it was like, he just felt super checked out. And I would be shocked if they brought him back. There's zero chance that they both come back. I'm going to say that right now. I think there's a 0% chance that both players come back. I think there's a higher chance that it's Tavares over Marner. But we'll see. We'll see. We've said this time and time again that they couldn't possibly run it back. I've been saying that for the last 3 years. No. And they run it back again and again and again.
Winning is supposed to be what matters to this team, according to Keith Pelley. Winning matters.
Well, that is the difference. And there's also one other guy who we believe is also up for a contract extension or a renewal. And we'll see if that happens. That would be one Brendan Shanahan, who is the head of the snake in many ways of this organization as the team president. And the Shana plan has now failed kind of in 2 different iterations. It's been 10 years and there's been no success. 12 years, actually. There's been no success. 2 rounds. That's it. They've won 2 playoff rounds since he got here. That's failure for when you look at the expectations of the group. That is utter failure. And to go back at it again would just be insane. Absolutely insane. So buckle up, folks. It's going to be a long off season. It's going to be an interesting off season in Toronto, and Dave and I will be here to report and react to everything. So make sure that you are subscribed to the Locked On Leafs podcast wherever you get your podcast, and you can also find us on YouTube as well. Hit subscribe, hit the little notification bell as well if you're on YouTube, so you know exactly when new episodes are going to drop each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, all the way through until the end of free agency, and then we drop down to 3 shows a week all through the summer. So you're always going to be getting the most up-to-date Leafs content possible. So make sure you are locked in with the Locked On Leafs podcast. That'll do it for us here today. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll come back tomorrow, Dave, and we'll dive a little deeper into what the hell went on in this Game 7. I'm sure we'll have locker cleanouts in the next couple of days. We'll hear from the general manager, the coach, the players, and we'll react to all of it throughout the week. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.